All right, we are getting to my solo portion at the tower. This has been long awaited by myself. I did another flight in February and I was rusty, had a lot of cobwebs, so I decided not to do the solo. But I did fly to this same airport, just didn't do
Newport News
solo.
Ground 4459 Juliet requesting taxi runway 7, student pilot solo.
Aircraft calling for a student solo. Say again your call sign.
November 4459 Juliet.
Cherokee 4459 Juliet, Newport News Ground. Follow the Cirrus ahead and to your right, runway 7, taxi via Sierra Alpha.
Following the Cirrus to Sierra Alpha 4459 Juliet.
So I flew with my CFI Val, and it was a little cold that day. It was a good flight day. We got into the airport with no problems. We did some laps, but I was not feeling very confident on my landings. I hadn't been practicing. I was out of it for like 2 months. And normally when I'm out of it that long, I would just come home and practice on my flight sim. But my yoke had fell off my desk. I had it screwed to the bottom of it. And the way my system is set up, I just couldn't practice anymore because of where the computer was, and it's a laptop, so there was just no room for it, so I couldn't practice. But eventually I finally got the a whole cockpit setup, so everything is now mounted onto that, and I was able to get some practice in before this flight. And several times I've actually done some streams, so if you go check out my live section, you'll see some of my live streams that I did right from my computer at home. One of the things I should have done was just left well enough
Op 7
alone at
proceed
this
via
point.
Golf Delta Foxtrot. Hold short of all runways.
But just trying to do my due diligence and make sure I check
All
everything.
right, we're going to get into this solo work here.
This is where I mess up.
Make sure that we are good here.
See, I don't know how those cameras got disconnected. I'm not sure, maybe the cord just popped out of the camera, so we're not receiving the audio from the headset. And sorry about the one angle. I normally try to do multiple angles, but the two cameras that you see in the cockpit right there both overheated. This was a hot day. The sun was beaming right into the cockpit, right at the top there. That area seems to accumulate a lot of heat, and the cameras just couldn't take the heat. They shut off. So unfortunately, I was not able to get multiple angles. I had the 360 camera on the outside, but I didn't charge the remote, so I had to cut that on from the time we took off from KPVG, and I just let it run out and ran out on its own. So it's the only reason I don't have this portion of that during this as well. So I'll try to be more prepared next time, see if I can mitigate some of these things to get you better angles, more angles, make sure I don't hit that cord to disconnect the audio. But these are the things that happen when you're recording. And sometimes you just have to go with the flow, regroup, and do something different. So I did ask for permission, or I told them that I was holding short of runway 7. This is runway 7 at KPHF, Newport News, Williamsburg International. The Cirrus just took off in front of me, and now it's my turn to take off and do my solo, my 3 landings at this tower, and be done with that requirement. I will say this was a pretty uneventful flight. The takeoff was good. The winds were, for the most part, favoring runway 7. if you go back on my timeline, there's a video. The video right, the long format video right before this video, you'll see me flying with the CFI Graham. That's a different CFI than you guys have seen before, but I was flying with Graham as my CFI wasn't available, and we had an issue with the transponder. Also, we were routed to runway 2 in the middle of our flight, and that was because they had some military airplanes landing on runway 7. They deployed a parachute. They had to clear that, so we landed on 2, and it was really bumpy landing on 2. But when we took back off, they rerouted us to 7, and it was smooth sailing from there. Now, what you don't hear on this is I didn't receive a call from the controller letting me know that I was, good to turn, or, giving me the option for left or right traffic. So I called in myself, and notified him, and then, he cleared me to make left traffic. So that's what I'm doing now, making left close traffic. And then I get up to my 1,000 feet, and this is just regular pattern work out here in Newport News. Runway is nice and long, 8,000 plus feet runway. So nothing out here is too difficult, especially when the winds are in your favor. Overall, this was just a pretty good flight. Man, I wish I had other angles here, but it's all good. It's all good. And this was a pretty quiet day as well. Wasn't many planes out flying at Newport News, so I pretty much had the pattern to myself, which set me at ease. There's always some anxiety about, for me anyway, talking to ATC. I've gotten a lot more comfortable with talking to them since I've done this several times at this airport. I imagine if I went somewhere like Norfolk International, that I'd probably be a little more nervous than what I was here. But the people in Newport News are pretty chill, which, that's a great thing. It kind of set my mind at ease with the whole situation. This is one of the things that I was kind of nervous about, was just going out there talking to ATC. When I'm at my airport or I'm at a non-towered airport, I have no problem communicating. But just making sure that I get everything right with ATC, I don't know, it's just something about it that just makes me a little more nervous, but I'm getting there, becoming more comfortable with it. So we just finished our downwind, now we're turning base. And right below us, you'll see that's 64, Highway 64 in Newport News, which takes you to I-95 or 264. If you're going that way, the way the plane is going, you can go to 13 from there, which would take you to New York or take you further down south. Virginia's pretty expansive. So getting ready to turn final. There's a little wind right here. It's a little bumpy at this spot, but it wasn't anything too bad. When you're in it, you just kind of roll with the punches, and it doesn't feel like much. I believe that's my third notch of flaps that I just put in. Hey, in the comments, let me know what you think about my landings. Solo landings, just me. I'm always critical of my landings. Looks like I'm hitting center line pretty well right now. It's a little rougher than what I want it to be, but it did the trick. Dumped those flaps, got right back on it, got right back in the air. Now, if I'm not mistaken, on this go around, I had another issue with the transponder. He did call me and say that he wasn't reading my transponder again. So I believe you'll see me start fixing that, cutting the transponder off and on, hitting the ident button until he actually sees my plane. So that's something that the flight school needs to get fixed. I want to say that would be the third time that that's happened to me. So in the previous flight and the one before that, it happened during those times at this very same airport. So that's definitely something we're going to want to get taken care of. You can see right there, that's runway 02 and runway 2. Definitely don't want to be on that runway, but the way they intersect each other can be a little bit deceiving when you're coming in for a landing. So you have to make sure that you're tracking your runway, because when you come in a final, they intersect right at the tip. So you have to make sure that you're on par or lined up for your runway. Otherwise, you'll wind up on the wrong runway. Well, that's what I was primarily focused on. Looking out that window is making sure that I have my runway in sight and not runway 2. So I'm still landing on runway 7. The winds were picking up a little bit. Still wasn't that bad. Earlier in the day, I mean, it was virtually no winds. And they pick up slightly. Also, by the time we get back to KPVG, the winds did pick up a lot more, but Still wasn't nothing that I couldn't handle at that level of winds, so I was pretty confident, so I just kept going. For all you other pilots out there, please feel free. You know, you can see the instrument panel pretty well in this video. Let me know what you think. Altitude control. Can you see my descent? You can see my descent a little bit, or my VSI a little on occasion. My airspeed control, you know, just energy management altogether. You know, if you got any pointers or any tips for me, go ahead and put them in the comments. On occasion, that artificial horizon does stop working. During this flight, it worked pretty well, but there are times where it will go out on you. So I wasn't relying on any of that inside, really. Mostly what I would look at is the my speed. Make sure that I'm within, you know, where I need to be on my speeds, hitting those markers. But you know, if you see anything, please let me know. That feedback is always great, helps me grow. It was a little rough landing. I should have held off a little bit longer. I was in ground effect, and there's no rush to get down. There's plenty of runway here. So this is just me critiquing my own landings. I'm sitting here listening to the motor, listening to the impact of the wheels on the ground. And just overall critiquing myself right now. So I definitely should have stayed in ground effect a little bit longer, just held off a little bit longer. So this is where he tells me about my transponder. So I'm cutting it off and on, hitting the ident button. Radio back in to see if he sees me. So I overshot my altitude by 100 feet right here. Well, there's a lot that goes on in the cockpit. So I really, ultimately, I'd like to be at 1,000 feet, but it's looking like I'm at 1125-ish, 1150-ish. And I'm keeping all this in mind because I have check ride prep coming up soon, you know, so I have to get ready for that. And once I finish up with my check ride prep, then it's my check ride. So I kind of have to be a stickler about the little things to make sure that I'm hitting those altitudes right on, plus or minus 100 feet, making sure that I'm hitting those headings. Is that plus or minus 10 degrees, I believe, or something like that? So I have to make sure that I'm really keeping those type of things in mind. And I can't remember if this is my last one or if I go around again. We're turning final again. I think on this final I turned in a little early, so it's kind of like an oblong shape compared to the others. But it works out in the end. There's 64, Interstate 64. I believe that's Jefferson Boulevard right there, if I'm not mistaken. Okay, that was a much better landing. Yeah, and that was my last one. After that, I taxied back to Atlantic Aviation to pick up my CFI and then head home from there. And so the last landing here was my best landing, in my opinion. But you let me know, leave that down in the comments. Really interested in hearing the critiques. Again, always looking to grow. Switching over to ground. Gonna call in for some ground instructions and she'll taxi me back. Yep. Pressing taxi back to Atlantic Aviation. Well, I think I was actually requesting Rick's, but there's nowhere to park at Rick's. So everyone's going to Atlantic. because there's nowhere to park at Rick's. I think they're doing some work on the pavement out there. And you can walk over there. They're open. You can walk, but there's no place to park our airplane. So, no, but overall, it's a good flight. So, I'll be headed out again. My next flight, I still need 30 minutes worth of solo time. So, that's going to be my next flight. More pattern work. 30 minutes or so in the pattern, and then I am completely finished with my requirements as far as the FAA is concerned. Then it's just check up with my CFI for this check ride, and that's it. It's been a long time coming, but I'm right at the finish line, right there. So hopefully sometime by June, July, I'll be completely finished, depending on when I can finish this 3 hours of check ride prep and hire a DPE.